Welcome to Interplay, Conversations in Music. This is your host, Michael Shapiro, with my dear friend and colleague, David Leibowitz, conductor of many orchestras, and especially the New York Repertory Orchestra. Hi, David.
Hey, Michael. How are you doing?
Wonderful to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you. It's this incredible time. We're both in New York. I'm up in Chappaqua. David's in New York, which they had to name twice to get it right, I suppose.
The fashionable Upper West Side. Less fashionable than the Upper East Side, but that's good.
I don't know. The before this all hit, the values in the Upper West Side were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because of the stock of apartments. David, you founded the New York Repertory Orchestra how many years ago now?
Well, we started giving concerts. We started giving full seasons of concerts 20 years ago, in February of 2000, actually. So it's 20 years ago, 21. Before that, though, it was a reading orchestra that met once or twice a month. And, people would get together when we would read stuff. And then after a while, we decided we wanted to perform. And then the fully performing New York Repertory Orchestra started in February of 2000.
Now, as I remember, because I first heard you way back, you were at a church actually near Lincoln Center, weren't you, in those days?
Right. We're at the Good Shepherd Church, which is that little church right behind Juilliard.
Right.
We were there for about 10 years. We outgrew the space. The orchestra got bigger. The audiences got bigger. By the time we left there, we had people in the audience actually sitting around and on the floor, well, always on the floor, but then on the floor around the orchestra players. Like the violin section had people sitting like right below them. So we moved. We found the Church of St. Mary in Times Square, which is bigger and friendlier and nicer, and we moved there, and we've been there for 10 years. So
it's basically a cathedral. It's a phenomenal place.
It is. It's enormous.
But now let's go to title.
Yeah.
This is not the New York blah blah orchestra. This is the New York Repertory Orchestra. So how did you find that word, and what does that mean to you?
Well, since the 20 years that we've been performing, concerts, not just reading, we've never repeated anything. So everything we've played for the first time for us. So in a way, that's the repertory part of it. We go through repertory. And I think that's one of the draws for us, for the players. It's an all volunteer orchestra. Many of our players are professionals. But I think the draw that brings in such good players, one of the draws, is that we do things that they've never played before, or may have played once in their life, or know of and have never played but have heard. So I think that's part of it, and that's where the repertory comes in. I have to be honest, we have repeated one piece, and that was the Mozart Sinfonia Concertante. But that was unavoidable because the concertmaster and the principal viola from the New York Philharmonic asked us if we would play it, if they could play it with us. So
was that as a tryout for them playing with the
Philharmonic? They played it with the Philharmonic.
Right.
And it's very interesting. The program that we did was that and either Shostakovich 8 or 10. And then the program they played with the New York Philharmonic was that and either Shostakovich 8 or 10, but the other one.
You've done so much repertoire in your repertory orchestra that it's hard to remember year to year, I'm sure.
Well, I have actually on the monitor behind you, I have the list of everything we've played. So in case you need to, and in case you quiz me, I will know that. But that's the draw for us. I like doing that. Certainly we have played all the big romantic pieces. We've done all the Beethoven symphonies and Schumann and a lot of Mozart and so on. But I think that in many ways the golden age of orchestral repertoire is the 20th century, because there's so much there's so much great stuff, sort of a flowering, and the use of the orchestra, the colors that were available in the 20th century that were just coming about in the 19th century are really interesting to me. So, we've done a lot of we've done all the Sibelius symphonies, or we would have if COVID had not hit us. We were going to do the last one in the cycle this year, number 7, and we've done all the Nielsen symphonies except one, and we've done a lot of Shostakovich and Prokofiev, a lot of the Prokofiev symphonies, and Martinu, and a lot of American music. Barber and David Diamond and Della Gioia and William Schumann and Copland, which really appeals to me and you. But you're not mid 20th century. You're a young guy.
Well, I was born mid 20th century.
But you didn't flourish, as they say in the encyclopedias.
I didn't flourish.
You only flourish. You're flourishing now.
Let's hope.
And so that's what. We do cover standard repertory, but we don't focus on it to the exclusion of everything else. And there are other organizations in the city, other orchestras that do that. So our players might play somewhere with another group, and they get to play a program that's all Schubert or all, Mendelssohn, Schubert. And we've done all those composers too. We've done a lot of their music, but we don't, it's less, we do less of it over the period of time. I mean, eventually we get to everything, but.
Well, let's talk about getting to everything.
Yeah.
You've been through, I know fairly recently you did Beethoven 9, which was, you hadn't done, but you got a chorus to cooperate with you and to join you.
And that was the last of our Beethoven cycle. So doing that was kept, and not just me doing all those pieces, but the orchestra doing all those pieces. So it's important for me that the orchestra experiences the completeness of that, but not all in one year.
Well, there's still plenty of Beethoven to do. I'm sure there's contradances you haven't done.
One of the things I was hoping for in the Beethoven year was a moratorium on the music of Beethoven, so that we could appreciate it with fresh ears. And I guess I hoped and prayed too well, because this year sort of everything went away, not just Beethoven.
Well, yes. And he supposedly was pockmarked in his cheeks, so maybe there was a bit of plague in there. We don't know.
Oh, I see.
But I'm curious about, I love your programming, and I've been to many of your concerts, but
of course.
More I've been to your rehearsals, which are fascinating on those Thursday nights. When you're, and this is a very interesting thing for you to relate, because of all the conductors I know, and as you know, I know a lot of conductors of all stripes, a lot of our friends.
Yeah, and this podcast is a testament to all the conductors that you know.
Yeah, well, many, and more are going to join me very shortly. I have 5 college conductors coming up together, all of whom you know.
I think, probably.
In any event, instruct the perhaps other conductors, not only the ones that are established, but also the ones coming up. What I know, there's nobody that knows how to put together a program than the way you do. I'm not talking about the quality of your conducting, which I've told you you're a great conductor, and I really do.
Thank you very much.
Issue coming from me, who's highly opinionated, doesn't like Bruckner. It's a big statement. In any event.
Oh, right. We've done a lot of Bruckner also.
I know that. And you're the one who told me to listen to Martinu, and that did. My God, are you right? That Third Symphony in particular. Holy moly.
I think Martinu, if we can
please
veer away from you complimenting me, Martinu is as great a symphonist, as a composer in general, as any of the bigger names like Shostakovich or Prokofiev.
Right.
I think he stands up there right alongside them, equal weight, equal importance, equal interest. And his music is unique you hear his music. I had this experience. I mean, the way I pick music, this is kind of how it happens.
Yeah, please.
I listen to something. I keep lists. These huge lists, pages and pages of things that I'm interested in hearing, that I hear about, and maybe on the radio, a friend mentions, or my colleagues suggest. I put it down. And I listen to them, and if it grabs me like right away, then that's a great sign. And that happens in Martinu every time I listen to any of his music. And we've done most of his concertos also, which are fantastic. And the symphonies, they just get you. I think the only other piece that had that sort of, it grabbed you in such a way that I thought, I've never heard this music ever in my life, is the Stravinsky Violin Concerto. The opening of that piece is something like, in a measure, you're like, oh, I've never heard this, and this is fantastic. How is this going to continue? And of course it does. And the same with Martinu. So let me, I agree with you, agreeing with me about Martinu.
Well, you mostly like when you agree with me. Well, I agree with you.
I think that's universal. Everyone likes that. I suppose,
especially New York thing,
Yeah.
When New Yorkers only talk about themselves, as opposed to Minnesotans who want to know about you. How are you doing? But let us now talk about repertory choices.
I want to know
where I was going.
Talk about music, yeah.
Blank page, season coming up. You have total authority to pretty much do what you want. You don't have to answer to a board of trustees. You don't have to answer to an executive director. You don't have to worry about how much money's coming through the door. You handle it. Well, you do, yeah. But it's your issue. It's your decision making. So largely you have a blank slate, which a lot of conductors do not have.
That's right.
They have to answer to the rich guy down, in the rich section of the town, or that executive director is worried about filling seats.
Of course. And, the orchestra that I conducted for over 10 years out on Long Island, I had no control over the programming. And It was a very standard repertoire. I don't think they rented a piece of music in their lives.
All right, but let's go back.
Yeah,
I'm
very lucky. I'm very fortunate that my board of directors allows me to do that on my own. I think that's become sort of the signature of the orchestra that way, in addition to the excellent playing. Yeah.
That's authority. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about choice.
Yeah.
Blank piece of paper, X number of concerts, 4 to 6 concerts maybe a year.
Right.
Is that what you're So some people would say thematic programming. I know from many conversations with you that you poo-poo that right away.
I hate thematic programming as a marketing tool in a way.
Why? Let's start with
because the thematic programming, I don't hate thematic programming, but the theme has to be musical. The theme has to be something that goes through the program, through the music of the program, and unites it in a way that is enlightening to the audience, even if they don't know that. So when I think of bad thematic programming, if I see another program that's called Fire and Ice, or a tour through old Europe, which is, every concert almost, or something that a theme that's been cooked up by a marketing department that then tries to force music into, that's not interesting to me. Thematic programming, that's just a hard thing to say. We should call it something else. Is something that links pieces together. So when I am creating a program, the feeling of pieces going together is very instinctual, but it can be something as simple as one piece deals with quintuple meter and another piece deals with quintuple meter. They're not related compositionally, but there's a link, and that link oftentimes is only known to me. It makes sense to me. And I'm happy to explain it to anyone if they're interested. I just don't think audiences are interested in that. I think they're interested in coming to a concert where they're going to hear good music that makes sense in a totality of a program.
Okay, so it's only known to you. It's the enigma variations of repertoire choice. Now, listen to me.
No, I will explain. I'm happy to explain it if anyone's interested. I just don't think people are interested. But what is interesting, actually, let me interrupt you once again.
Yeah. What
I think is really interesting is members of the orchestra over the period of rehearsals will often come up and say, you know, this piece that we're doing and this piece that we're doing, I never noticed, but there's this thing about them that's the same. I'm sorry, there's a siren outside.
It adds a musical flavor. So both pieces have hemiola. Oh my God. David, you still haven't gotten to the, this is a learning moment, a teaching moment for you.
Yeah.
For the people who are going to watch this.
Yeah.
So you're telling a young conductor how to choose rep. We get away from this kind of quasi,
in the
publicity.
most, okay. All right. In the most basic way, if you're having soloists, you have to first know what the soloists are doing. Right? Okay. And then you have to find something that complements what they're doing. And that's the trick. So that's why I have very long lists of things. Now, our soloists, many of whom have played with us many times, understand that when they come and play with us, I don't ask them to do anything. I don't say, can you please do this? I always say, what do you want to play that you never get to play? Which is why we've done the Stravinsky Violin Concerto and the Martinu Violin Concerto and both Shostakovich cello concertos. Not the one that everyone does, but also the one that very few people do.
The second one.
Or the Britten Violin Concerto.
Right.
Or all these things. Or, the concertmaster from Minnesota Orchestra played with us once, and she's awesome. She's a really good player. And I said, what have you never done? And she said, I've never performed live with an orchestra, the Bruch Scottish Fantasy.
Uh-huh.
So it makes it special for the soloists. Unfortunately, we hadn't done it. And it's something that makes it special for the soloists. So they're bringing sort of this extra oomph. And then to try and find something that goes with that in a way that makes sense, not just something that's the same instruments, although that's part of it too. But to find something that goes with something, it means going through everything and examining everything. Certainly at the beginning of every year.
Quick question. Question before the beginning of every year. What goes with the Scottish Fantasy of Bruch?
I don't remember, but it was not more Bruch.
It wasn't a piece composed in Brooklyn, was it?
No.
Or by a Brooklyn composer. That would have been very enigma, David Leibowitz.
It's enough that the conductor is from Brooklyn.
There you go. We're both from Brooklyn, folks. Right. David, so you're talking about next year.
Okay, so at the beginning of every year, right?
Please.
Or the beginning of every 2 years or so. And I have lists of pieces that I would like to perform with the orchestra.
Right.
And those lists are smaller. I mean, I know that I knew that last year that I wanted us to do the Sibelius 7 because we hadn't finished the cycle and we wanted to do that, and some other pieces. And then along with some of the other pieces that the soloists were doing, I was able to put that and other pieces together. So the program that we wanted to do in March, that then we thought we were going to do in May, and then we thought we were going to do in October, and then we thought we were going to do in December, and then we thought we were going to do in February, that we're not doing, was the soloist is a pianist, and she wanted to play the Gershwin Concerto in F.
Mm.
And I know that one of the pieces that I wanted to play that year was the Honegger Fifth Symphony, Die Tre Re.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, I know. Charles Munch and Karajan.
It sounds better than that.
Sorry.
And then the other thing that we had on the program was the Nielsen Overture Helios.
Wow.
Okay, so one thing that joins those people is they're all kind of contemporaries.
Yeah.
They're all different. I mean, Gershwin has certainly a French influence in his music,
Yep.
and Honegger has a sort of, his influences are more vague. They're in that piece anyway. They're more international than French, and the Nielsen I thought went well in its sort of exclamatory nature with something like with both of those pieces. All three of those pieces are very ta-da. They all are very external. They're very, what do you call when someone is very outgoing? They're very outgoing. They're very outgoing.
David, but aren't they also, don't they have a lot of polytonality in them? A lot of chords that are jumped on top of each other?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. There are links all over the place. I haven't looked at that music in a year. I don't remember. No, I do.
No, but I know the pieces.
Yeah, there are many links. They're all, Gershwin and Honegger are really have a similar language that's being used differently at this, and it's roughly around the same time, the same 20 years or so. So, yeah. I mean, that's part of it. That's how some of those programs come together.
Now, sometimes you'll do a program that's devoted to one composer. For example, I remember you waxing poetic and also, my God, getting it into your soul when you did Mahler 9.
Right.
And also when you did Götterdämmerung. This was full concerts, one composer, one piece.
No. The program that we did, it wasn't Götterdämmerung. It was the end of Siegfried. It was the end of Siegfried. That was the second half of the program. The first half was the Rosen Cavalier Suite.
Talk about that. How did you figure those two out? Apart from the album.
Well, I figured we had everyone for the Wagner. We might as well do this.
You might as well give them Rosen Cavalier first. Was Rosen Cavalier second?
No, because the soloist decision was first. Wow. Sometimes things come together. It's not all intellectually done. It just works together. It's like you have an aha moment, like, oh yeah, let's do the Strauss, because they're both roughly the same length. They balance the program. There's not really anything else you can do on a program. I mean, the Wagner was, like almost an hour. It's the last. Huge. It's the final scene, but it's longer than the three scenes that come before it. And we had really amazing soloists. Who
That's
again?
When he wakes up Brunhilde from the sleep, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We start there, and it goes on. I mean, it's not doom at the end of that thing, but it's doom is coming. It's kind of a happy ending.
I jumped to the next opera with Götterdämmerung.
Yeah, but
David,
those two pieces came together. I thought they really balanced each other well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, almost all volunteer orchestra with many pros brought in for various reasons. Some come in because they want to just learn new repertoire that they haven't been doing. Others you need to hire to fill slots. I know about this from working with you.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing too is that there are certain instruments or certain kinds of players that don't you need to get quotes a pro. Wouldn't you say?
I'm not sure I understand. You mean to pay? I'll tell you, we pay maybe 3 or 4 people in a concert, and that's with a full orchestra. If we have a harp, obviously we pay a harpist.
Yeah,
because they're not, we don't want them to have to come into every rehearsal.
Right.
Maybe a percussionist to fill out a section that's large, but that's, that's it.
What's your rehearsal? Yeah. What's your rehearsal schedule like?
First rehearsal, we read everything. Everyone who can be there is there. Second rehearsal is usually a string sectional. And then after that, I treat all the rehearsals in as professional manner as I can. I know many of our players are professionals. Most of the wind players, certainly the principal wind players, are all conservatory graduate level players. The string players tend to be amateur players who have studied all their life, gone to, orchestra camp and all that kind of thing, and then have chosen, not to be a musician professionally, but they're very good. So that's why I have a string sectional, because as a section, I want to make sure that the feeling of the section is there. The winds are I can trust more. I don't want to say that. The winds, everyone's a soloist in the wind section. I know they all come ready to go in many ways. And then
that's not
rehearsals,
atypical.
no, but in rehearsals, I try and do things as if it were a professional orchestra. I don't go back. I say, after the string sectional, we're going to do the first movement of this on the next week, the second movement of this on the next week, and we're not going back. So we don't just play through things to play through them. We really work on everything in detail, and then we move on. And if you've missed that, as we say in school, if you miss the work, you got to get it from somebody else.
No.
and come in prepared. So
let's talk about preparation. Your quotes volunteer orchestra in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Mark.
No, they're a volunteer orchestra. We're talking about maybe 3 or 4 people that are not.
But
yes,
what are your requirements for somebody to get into the New York Repertory Orchestra, which can be up to 70 to 90 people on occasion?
Yeah. What do we do?
Some voluntary orchestras will take pretty much anybody who can saw away, but that's not you.
Right.
I know.
Right. No. And there are
what are you looking for?
There are many community orchestras in New York, and of many levels. And we certainly, someone may come to want to play with us, and we can gently suggest another group if we think they're not ready. And we're happy to say that in a very nice way. I don't audition players. Someone emails to ask about playing. I ask them about themselves. Tell me about your background, your experience. And it's really, I would say 99% of the time, you can tell by the way someone describes their background, the level of their playing. If someone says, oh, I don't remember the orchestra, but I remember we played a Mozart, we played a Beethoven. Generally speaking, I know that they're probably not ready. And I make it clear that we'll take people who only have at least 10 years of orchestra experience, right? Less than that. And I try not to take, in many ways, undergraduate students, because their schedules are often crazy, and that's fine. Students are meant to be flaky in many ways. So just in general, I don't do that. I try not to do that unless they're amazing and dedicated. But then we ask them to come in for a rehearsal or two. I'm getting there. We ask them to come in for a rehearsal or two, and I tell them that we may ask them to play the music that's been rehearsed for me and the section leader or the concertmaster.
Right.
I don't ask them to play a concerto. I don't ask them to play scales in 3 octaves with arpeggios. And that's string players. Wind players, there's been no movement in our wind section for about 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere.
Okay.
They better not be going anywhere.
I want to talk about repertory. We have just a very few minutes left. Are there composers that you never want to do again, and composers you'd really like to do and haven't done yet?
I don't know if there are composers that I would never do. I think that there are some pieces by, let's say there's a composer, and there's a piece by that composer that I think is not worth doing, but there's a piece by that composer that I think is worth doing. I don't think there's any composer that's not worth doing, as long as I like the music. Who are we talking about? Florence Schmidt?
Well, you can talk about dead people. I think it's bad taste to talk about living people.
Yeah, for a while, I forget which Schmidt. It was either Florence Schmidt or Franz Schmidt. Who's the French one?
Florence
so someone had been suggesting Schmidt to me, the French Schmidt. And I listened to it initially and I thought it was interesting. And then I went to a concert in Philadelphia. I heard it and I thought, this is terrible. So I haven't really looked further, but
we were together at that concert, by the way.
Yes, I know. So you agree with me, or else?
Or else?
Yeah. So that was, but that was an all French program, and I would never do an all French program.
Well, Cantaloupe was on that too. That was beautiful. David, what would you like to do that you haven't done? And then we'll have to go into the ether of the end of this conversation.
I would like to do more Martinů. I would like to do more music by living composers. We commission a lot of music, but I would like to do more new music. I like doing new music, that music that I don't know beforehand, not before the first rehearsal, but music that is interesting and unknown. And, that's really it. I don't have any, the composers that I want to do, we've done. I mean, we've done music by them. I want to do more of them. There's a young composer here named Anna Klein, whose music I want to do more of. I just heard about an Estonian composer today who's 99. I had never heard of her. And I listened to a piece of hers and I think it's fantastic. And I want to do that. One of the pieces that we wanted to do this year that we didn't get a chance to do was by a Soviet composer. I forget her first name. Her last name is Kashperova, who was a contemporary of Shostakovich or a teacher. And this symphony of hers has never been played in the West, really. And it's fantastic. So, I'm always looking for these things that are unusual, that are great, but for some reason haven't been done. Like Amy Beach's symphony, we did that. And that's, I remember. Fantastic. Yeah.
Well, it's always unusual to talk to David Leibowitz, and it's always great enjoyment. David, thank you for joining Interplay Conversations in Music.
Thanks, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
This is Michael Shapiro, your host. Thank you for joining us.